Is it possible to have a remix that is simultaneously exactly the same as the original song, while also completely different? Something that both changes everything and nothing about the original song. I think that's what's happened with the new Charli XCX, The Girl So Confusing remix with Lorde. And it's been a good month for me, a good couple of months for me. You know, I covered the Drake and Kendrick beef, and that pushed me up over 100,000 subscribers. Awesome, cool. But, you know, that's not really like what I'm about. I'm not really about discord and fighting and anger and negativity. I'm much more about, you know, positivity, which is why I'm so happy to be talking about this song, because this is the opposite of beef. This is the opposite of beef song. I don't know what the opposite of beef is. Phoebe? Tofu? Kale? Some kind of roughage? Whatever it is, I think if you take this and all of the great Kendrick tracks from the beef and you kind of put them together, you have a nice balanced meal. And in this case, you have yet another salvo in this amazing attack on patriarchy that's been going on for a few decades, but it's really been picking up some steam between Barbie and this, the summer of brats. Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show, hosted by a French professor who was in the New York Times talking about the etymology of the word brat. So check that out if you haven't. Just look up New York Times, Charli XCX, Summer of Brat, and you'll see my name there. Pretty well, very, very cool. But anyway, so if you don't know about this song, it's the song "Girl So Confusing," a song which I really liked, and then has a remix with Lorde on it. Lorde, I reviewed her album last year. Not a lot of people like that album. I thought it was really nice, even if it was a little too George Michael-y at times. But when the song came out, I try not to read too much of biography. I try to just interact with the song. So when I listened to the song, I understood it as being a great song about the difficulty of having friendships as a woman, about having competition with other women when you're in certain fields or whenever you're in a shared space. I didn't understand that everybody who was kind of behind the scenes, all up on internet gossip, I just don't do Twitter. I'm not like an anti-Twitter guy. I just don't really do it. Like I go on there sometimes and then I just kind of get sort of bored and then I walk away. So I wasn't really hip to the fact that this whole song about like your hair looks like mine and I always think about doing music with you, that this might actually be about Lorde. So when this remix came out, it was a little bit lost on me because I wasn't like Kendrick popping up on a Drake song. You know, it was just sort of like, oh, okay. So I did a little bit of research, and through an Entertainment Weekly article, I found one of the sources of the beef that exists. And if you have not seen this interview before, you are welcome. Okay, this is someone named Priscilla who's doing this interview. I don't know if this is some kind of Borat Ali G thing here, but this is one of the funniest interviews with Charli XCX that you will ever see. Okay, here it is.
I have to say that I love your music. One of my favorite songs that you have is Royals. Where did you get the inspiration for that?
Royals came from, just me looking at like how I'm from New Zealand, from like a small town, and like I'm not really part of that bougie like lifestyle culture, so I thought I'd write a song about it.
Now, your most recent song.
So to me, that first of all makes me fall in love with Charli XCX, not in a weird internet way, but just like in a oh my god, that's great, right? Like just the way that she rolled with it. But apparently, when Royals came out at the time, and this is according to Charli XCX and other interviews, she felt jealous. She felt like, well, this person kind of looks like me. We do the same kind of eyeliner or whatever, or eye makeup. I don't really understand makeup. I did work for Urban Decay for a very brief period of time, but that's as much as I understand about makeup. And it's just this interesting moment where, like, she was jealous. She was jealous of the success that Lorde had. And that's the thing, when I talk about this being exactly the same and completely different, well, musically, I've listened to them back to back, and maybe the tempo is slightly higher. Maybe A.G. Cook added like a little extra buzz to one of the sounds, but as far as I can tell, it's exactly the same song. Feel free to tell me in the comments. The cover, you'd think, would be a picture of Lorde with Charli, but it's not. It's Charli XCX looking in the mirror, which is perfect. Mirror, if you haven't seen my video about Brat, check it out. That's one of my better videos this year. I go all into it. I'm talking Picasso. It's a fun video. Tell me in the comments if you've seen it. That's a stupid thing to ask. Don't tell me in the comments. Whatever you do, don't tell me in the comments if you saw my Brat video. Tell me something else. I don't know. Tell me if you like avocados. That's more interesting to me. But the cover is her looking into the mirror, and the mirror is a major theme in the album, and I think it's a major theme of what this is about. This question of who am I and who are you? Who is this other woman? So much of the album is about like looking in the mirror and you see her looking back, and then sometimes she looks in the mirror and she sees herself looking back. And what makes this the same and so different is that it doesn't sound different. And what Lorde did was she took the implicit meaning of the song and made it explicit. Took the general message of the song and made it specific. The song, the original version, is a general statement about friendship and rivalry between women, about how confusing it is to be a girl. Right? How confusing it is, and how hard it is to overcome that and have some sense of true sisterhood. How do you do that in patriarchy, especially when women are invariably, constantly pit against each other for one spot? You give men 10 spots, you give women 1 spot, and then they fight, and then everyone comments on it and say, oh, that's just how women are. No, that's not how women are. That's how people are when they're not given enough access to visibility or structural power, okay? They don't always know how to act. They don't always know what's in their best interest because they're fighting for so little. So, at any time in pop culture, there can only be one. So, Brittany, Christina, you just go fight so we can figure it out. There could be one blonde, one brunette, maybe one goth. You can maybe like one black woman with natural hair, maybe one with like dyed hair, maybe one Hispanic, or sort of like in general, our culture allows there to be one woman in one space. So this competition makes sense. And what the original song did is it laid bare the fact that this is a problem, that this kind of competition, this kind of beef is a problem. And, to be fair, in, I think Rhapsody's album, she talks about it a fair amount. Other female rappers are starting to get hip to this fact, that the fact that Cardi B fights with Nicki Minaj, fights with Lil Kim, fights with Foxy Brown. I don't even know, right? But just the fact that they always fight against each other is that sense that they're being pitted against each other to serve patriarchal domination. Remember a few years ago, which Chris do you like? Hemsworth. That's a more interesting question. Which Chris do you like? Hemsworth, Pine, Evans, it's so fun. And they all get to have huge movie careers and they don't actually fight with each other because we can take 3 milquetoast, handsome white guys named Chris and they all get to be as famous as they can possibly be without us having them fight against each other like, roosters. So what does this do? This song, with this amazing verse by Lorde, makes it explicit by making it specific. Well, honestly, I was speechless when I woke up to your voice note. You told me how you'd been feeling. Side note, in America, we're told not to talk about our salaries with our coworkers. Like, it's just seen as being sort of a bad thing to do. Who does that serve? That serves your bosses. Because if you work next to someone and they make 60 grand and you make 30 grand for the same job, you might get angry and you might ask, where does it come from that we think that's not proper? That's because our bosses have told us not to ask each other. The same basic idea. You told me how you'd been feeling. Direct communication between people. That's the way to break out of any kind of power system that you're stuck in, is you work with somebody who's at the same level as you, who's suffering under the same system, and you communicate. You figure out how you're feeling, you address the issues between you, and then you start punching up. You start doing, high charge uppercuts. You know what I'm saying? And this is beautiful because it's specific. This public. You'd been feeling. It's specific. This happened. You know that Lorde got a voicemail from Charli XCX. But this is also for all women everywhere who try to work it out. And then she says, let's work it out on the remix. So we're listening. This is a very meta moment. This is a very postmodern song, okay? This is a song about working through a difficulty by doing a remix together that is also the remix together. All right? It's John C. Reilly, Woo, all right? Weirdo hair, Adult Swim, whatever. You'd always say, let's go out. Then I'd cancel at the last minute. Okay? So we now have the truth that they did try to have a relationship. Charli XCX tried to have a relationship, but it couldn't work. I was so lost in my head and scared to be in your pictures. Scared to be in your pictures. Think about the life of famous people. I understand we don't have any sympathy for famous people because we think we'd rather be famous. I guarantee you, I would rather be me than Charli XCX. I'd rather be me than Eddie Vedder. I'd rather be me than Neil Young. I'd rather be me than any famous person. I'm a happy person. And part of the reason I'm happy is that I can just exist and I can just live. I don't have to worry about being in other people's pictures because she's thinking about the way that she looks and how she would look next to Charli XCX. Because when you're a female star, you have to be obsessed with your look because your look is analyzed and scrutinized, not just by the enemy, but by the friends, by your fans. Everybody scrutinizes. Whether you change your hair, whether you look good, whether you look bad, whether you're blonde, whether you're this, whether you're that. For the last couple of years, I've been at war in my body. I tried to starve myself thinner, and then I gained all the weight back. So, and this is just the great human moment. Billie Eilish, the first track off of her excellent last album, talks about this as well. Please, more. I try to do this as much as I can. More. I want more songs where female pop stars talk about the difficulty of staying in shape. And male stars, for that matter. I want this to be public. Just like you need to talk to your coworkers to see, that's your homework, by the way. Ask your coworkers how much do they make, all right? You might end up unionizing and going after the boss when you realize what kind of horse hockey they're up to up there. Anyways, like this conversation needs to be had. We need to get tired of it. We need to say, oh, is this another female pop star talking about it? Because it's something that keeps happening. It keeps happening. All of these poor women, truly, doesn't matter how famous you are, that they have to think at this level at all times. How does patriarchy pit women against each other? This is it. She doesn't want to be 5 pounds too heavy in a picture with Charli XCX. Too heavy, right? That's in quotes. I was trapped in the hatred and your life seemed so awesome. I never thought for a second my voice was in your head. Give another listen to Solar Power, whatever the name of the album was. I forget what it was called. It was from last year. It was the one where she's jumping over the camera, you know? But this is great because it's like, this is so human. Do you not relate to this? Have you not had someone like this in your life where you look at them and you go, wow, they have all the friends. They've got this great partner. They're just so happy. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to be around them. And then you go and you like hang out with them or you talk to them or you get to know them or you talk to them 3 years later and you're like, oh no. No. He was cheating on me. I was working like 60 hours a week. It was like terrible. My sister had like a full like car accident and like I was out in and out of the hospital that whole, like the whole time. Like you don't know what's happening inside of people's heads because that's the whole point. That's why you have to talk to your coworkers. That's why women have to talk to each other. That's why you have to talk to people when you don't get along with them because you have to not just be voices inside your head. My voice was inside your head. My voice was inside your head. It's a whole psychological thing. You have negative voices inside your head. And I've been talking a lot about psychology lately because it's super important. But remember, you have voices inside your head. According to transactional analysis, that voice is what's called, it's a parental voice, like essentially saying that you're bad or not good enough. So this is how these women, through the mechanisms of patriarchy and the communal abuses of fame, get inside of each other's head in a way that prevents them from being together. How do you prevent solidarity? You get inside their heads and make them think it's the other person's fault. Foxy Brown and Lil' Kim should have been best friends. Girl, you walk like a bitch. When I was 10, someone said that. And it's just self-defense. Oh my God. So here she's talking about how she's perceived and how a lot of women have to project a certain amount of steeliness, a certain amount of coldness to avoid unwanted advances. That's why I will never in my entire life allow anybody to say around me the expression resting bitch face. I have had so many women try to tell me that it's okay, and I call them bad feminists right to their face because there's no such thing as resting bitch face. There's just face. You just have face. Fight patriarchy. Do not use that term. Even if you think it makes you self-effacing and funny, no, you're just supporting it. No one can walk like a bitch. No one has a resting bitch face. Everyone just has a face. Must we perform all the time? And who must perform all the time? And it's just self-defense until you're building a weapon. She believed my projection, and now I totally get it. Forgot that inside that icon, there's still a young girl from Essex. Which is to say, we forget people's humanity when they reach a certain level of fame. We forget people's humanity when we are jealous of them. Both of these women thought that the other person had what they wanted. Both of these women thought that they were occupying the space that they should occupy. What was the similarity? They were both unhappy, and they both had voices inside their head telling them that they were not good enough. Charlie's voice was named Lorde. Lorde's voice was named Charlie. So what happens now that they work together? Those voices have changed. And instead of saying, you're a bitch, and you're not famous enough, and you're not good enough, and you're fat, those voices are saying, it's confusing to be a girl. Let's do a remix together and blow up the internet. Legitimate goosebumps, okay? I don't edit these things together. That's what this is. As a sort of philosophical note, what I think this reminds us of, it's Sunday. You know, my dad was a preacher, so I'll be releasing this on a Monday, but I'm recording on a Sunday. There's a lot of bad stuff about religion. Basically all the stuff that has to do with human beings. But there's a lot of good stuff about religion too. And one of my favorite things is the idea of grace. So the idea is that like sort of like unconditional forgiveness. Now obviously that doesn't mean, someone, murders your cat on purpose that you have to jump out and forgive them. But I think the concept of grace is a really important one. Because especially when you are in a situation of stress, especially when you are subjugated or marginalized or oppressed, it can be hard to extend grace to people around you. I'll give you an example, right? So I've had a lot of grief in my family over the last couple of years. Both my parents died in the last 5, 6 years, 7 years, whatever, how long it's been very stressful. And I have 3 brothers and I love them very much. But the amount of stress that pops up, and it's like all of our entire lives together. We love each other so much, but at the same time, we've pissed each other off so much because we're brothers, because we're family. That's the moment where you need the most grace, is where you're sitting there and you're mourning and you're grieving. But that's the moment where it's the hardest to give grace. It's the hardest to just say, you know what, they just left and didn't say goodbye, and that was really rude, but you know what, we're just all trying to get through this life together. I think that's okay. And you just let it go. You just extend them that grace. Because if you don't, then all of a sudden you start getting mad and you start saying how rude of them, and I worked so hard and I said goodbye and I said this, and then all of a sudden you just break apart. That unity breaks apart. And that's what these systems of power are trying to do in keeping people subjugated. They're trying to keep them apart, trying not to keep them together. So Charli XCX is extending this grace towards Lorde for blowing her off and never showing up when she invites her somewhere. Lorde is extending the grace to Charli XCX for, I don't know, being mad at her for whatever, right? They're extending grace to each other, and in so doing, they're freeing themselves from that anger and bitterness. And the most important thing about extending grace to other people is you can then extend grace to yourself. And why is this song so powerful? Because fundamentally, Lorde is forgiving Lorde, and Charli is forgiving Charli. And they're free. But it's the same song, right? All those things that I just said were implied. They were implicit in the original version by Charli XCX. It's just having Lorde hop on there made them explicit by making them specific. Lots of big words here. These are my Patreons. They help me to buy music. I bought Brat, so they helped me to do that. I had one Patreon who wanted a specific shout out, Jack Dyson. You got it. All right. Tell me what you think about this song. Which of the Chris's is your favorite? I think I gotta go Evans, but just for Knives Out. That man was so handsome in Knives Out. I actually got had my wife get me that sweater that he has in Knives Out, the actual one, so I can feel like Chris Evans for a minute, Okay. Until next time, it's the stupidest way I've ever ended a video. Until next time, there's the camera.